This is lesson 191 if you want to open your book, or if you need a copy of the lesson, you can look at that. I cut it down for the meditation. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about it as we read it tonight. But this lesson, it tells us, it's got some pretty tough words in it. It says here, first off, it starts off telling us something quite beautiful. It says, to say that you are the Holy Son of God himself. And don't worry about son. When it's talking about son, it's not talking about a masculine gender. It's talking about a child, that you are God's holy child. You can insert that if you want. This is a declaration, it says, of your release from the bondage of the world. That's a powerful statement. Jesus, as I said, it sounds like an old-fashioned statement, but what's the bondage of your world? Think about that. It's the people that people your world. It's the job that you go to. It's the everyday relationships. It's the financial challenges. It's so many different things in our lives that become our bondage. What do we feel bound to? And what this is saying to us is that we may still walk through this world, but we do not have to be bondaged to this world. We don't have to be chained to this world. So what this is saying is this awareness, and that's hard for us to understand. It's like our egos are saying, what do you mean just knowing who I am is going to release me from the bondage of the world? But what it says is, because if you know you are truly a child of God, if you know that you are a child of the infinite, that your Father is the King of Kings, the omnipotent and omniscient, then that gives you a sense of, I am the same, of that same awareness. So I have power over the dominion of my world. Now, that doesn't mean I have power over other people. What it means is, though, I have the power within this experience of the world to see as Christ would see, to see love, to see peace, to give the gift of forgiveness. That's the kind of power we're talking about. It's not changing the circumstances, because Jesus didn't talk about necessarily changing the circumstances. He said, change your consciousness. And so if we know who we are, it doesn't matter where we're at. We know who we are. We are God's holy child, in whom he's well pleased. And there is nothing that we cannot do. There is no thing that the light in us cannot bring in a healing manner. And then it goes on to say, and that's what's so powerful about this, not only are you carrying this mighty message, it says, and here as well is the world's release. The world is released with you. When you know this truth, you unlock the bondage of the world. You do not see what you have done, it says, by giving to the world the role of jailer to the Son of God. Because we do not believe that we have dominion over the world. We do not believe that the world is made by our thoughts and changes by our thoughts. We've given, it says, the world jailer over us. So that means we feel imprisoned by what's going on in the world. Who's president? What financial statement is going on? But nothing can take away your joy. Nothing can take away your love. Nothing can take away your peace. That's what we need to remember. It says, we have given the world the role of jailer to the Son of God. And it says, by doing so, it says, what could it be but vicious and afraid, fearful of shadows, punitive and wild, lacking all reason, blind and insane with hate. I didn't put all that in the meditation tonight, because, that's a little hard when if I'm peaceful and I'm blind and insane with hate. But this is the world we see. And we see some good examples of this world right now in what seems to be going on. Actually, it's kind of interesting, and this, I'm not making a political statement. If you like Donald Trump, great. If you don't like Donald Trump, great. What I'm trying to say is he's a great example of a huge ego, right? I don't think any of us would contradict that. So it gives us a good example to see some of this real close up. It's a good example for us. Because big blustering egos, and we've all seen them. We've all been around people like that. Big blustering egos usually have a lot of insecurities within themselves. And so as we begin to look at them, we see their own frailty. I often heard people say if someone's got money, they don't have to say how much money they have. They don't have to talk about money. I always laughed about that. Warren Buffett was always such a good example. He doesn't look like a guy who's got, $78 billion. You know, he just dresses pretty normal. He looks pretty normal. He's pretty unassuming, just doesn't talk about it. I look at Bill Gates. I think he's richer than Warren Buffett. He doesn't talk about stuff. He just does stuff. And I think that's what we're asked to do, is to bring this truth with us, not talk about it, not load it over anybody. You know, just be the example. Jesus was that way. He didn't sit there going, I'm the King of Kings, I'm the Lord of Lords. It was all those songs written after him. King of Kings, Lord of Lords, what, the Hallelujah Chorus, all these big things about him. But he was very, you know, he just was. He just was the example of that. There was not anything big and blustering. This big and blustering, as this kind of says, this becomes what we think we need to do when we feel empty within. But the more we know who we are, the less we need to, in many cases, say. I think it was, wasn't it, St. Francis of Assisi who said, when he was teaching his disciples, because he was the saint of all nature, and you know, he said, go out and preach this message of kindness and compassion to all nature. And he says, and if necessary, use words. You know, the idea was not to say, but to do, but to be. And that's what this is about. Knowing who we are doesn't mean that we have to say anything. We just have to move through the world in this knowing, in this awareness.